Ebony Ray Thomas was last seen on a Thursday evening in late June 2021. She was wearing a dark gray hoodie, light blue jeans, and flats. The security camera on her neighbor's porch captured her pulling out of her driveway at 6:48 p.m., phone in hand, purse on the passenger seat. Then nothing. Her car never showed up on any traffic camera. Her phone stopped pinging cell towers. Her credit cards were never used again. No witnesses, no ransom note, no struggle. She vanished without a single sound, without a single clue. And her house, it sat at the edge of a quiet rural road in Rankin County, Mississippi, just south of Jackson. The driveway curved slightly to the left and pointed toward a small pond at the bottom of a gentle slope, roughly 30 feet from her front steps. For 2 years, dozens of officers, search teams, dogs, divers, and drones combed through that property. They searched the woods. They knocked on every door within a 10-mile radius. They questioned co-workers, exes, former landlords, cousins. They drained nearby creeks, drove hundreds of miles following anonymous tips. But nobody ever checked the pond right beside her home. Not until this morning. A YouTube-based search and recovery team called Deep Sight Divers had come to Mississippi after one of their viewers messaged them. "I don't know how it's been 2 years and no one checked the water in front of her damn house." So they did. Sonar equipment mounted on a flat-bottom boat, 2 divers in black wetsuits, 15 minutes of scanning. And then an unmistakable shadow on the screen, a vehicle, submerged, upright, 30 feet from the shoreline. One of the divers later said, "It was like the car had been parked there, like it rolled straight in from the driveway. It was Zorny," and it had. The moment the rear bumper breached the water's surface, the sheriff's deputies on site went pale. Inside the car was a body badly decomposed, still strapped in place. The license plate confirmed what they already knew. Ebony Thomas had been right there all along. The news spread like gasoline on dry grass. Missing woman found in pond next to home. Foul play suspected. 2 years, 1 driveway, 1 mystery. How did police miss the obvious? But for Ebony's older sister, Sierra Thomas, the headlines were salt on a wound that had never stopped bleeding. "I begged them to check the property," she told reporters outside the police line, arms crossed over her chest, eyes red from lack of sleep. "I told them the driveway ends right at the pond. I told them that was the first place she should have been." Nobody listened, and now her sister was dead. The body hadn't been formally identified yet, not through DNA, not through dental records. But everyone already knew. The purse was still there on the passenger seat, the same one Ebony had posted on Instagram just hours before she vanished. Tan leather, gold zipper, a small scratch on the lower corner. Inside, they found her wallet, her phone, and a charm bracelet that matched the one Sierra had gifted her the Christmas before she disappeared. There was no mistaking it. The woman they'd been looking for was never gone. She was right there, under the surface, 15 feet down, 2 years invisible. That night, Sierra didn't go home. She sat in her car, parked across the street from Ebony's empty house, engine off, window cracked. The pond was still roped off with yellow tape. A single floodlight buzzed softly, casting ripples of gold across the water's surface. She hadn't stepped foot on that property in over a year, not since the search went cold, not since they told her to move on. Now she couldn't look away. How did nobody see? How did nobody ask the most obvious question? How did an entire police department, 3 private investigators, and a national database miss the one thing a stranger on YouTube had found in 15 minutes? It didn't make sense. None of it did. The official statement from the Rankin County Sheriff's Office was brief. "As of this time, we cannot confirm whether the cause of death was accidental or intentional. Foul play has not been ruled out. The case remains open and active." But Sierra had a feeling in her gut. Ebony wasn't drunk. She didn't drive recklessly, and she would never have just rolled into the pond. Especially not head-on, especially not without trying to get out. The seatbelt was still buckled. The windows were up. The car was in neutral. And the path from the front steps to the pond was smooth, clear, and almost too convenient. Like it was meant to lead there. Sierra Thomas had always trusted her gut, and her gut was screaming. She stood at the edge of the pond where her sister had just been pulled from the water the day before. The police tape was still flapping in the wind, more for formality than anything else. No one was guarding the scene anymore. The car had been removed. The divers had gone home. The media had moved on to the next tragedy. But Sierra hadn't. She stood alone in the late afternoon heat, arms crossed, scanning every inch of the shoreline. The driveway curved down to the pond in a slow, even slope. No trees, no fences, no barriers, just gravel, soft grass, and water. If someone wasn't paying attention, yes, they could drive right in. But her sister hadn't been careless. Ebony didn't drive distracted. She didn't drink. She didn't text and drive. And she didn't disappear on her own. There was something off here. Too many things. Actually, that night, Sierra got permission from the property manager to enter the house. It had been sitting empty for nearly 18 months. Technically bank-owned after Ebony stopped making mortgage payments. The lights still worked. The appliances buzzed back to life with a hum. But the house felt wrong. Cold, still, like it had been sealed in time. Sierra walked slowly through the rooms, her fingers trailing the furniture. The living room still had the old recliner where Ebony used to read. The calendar on the wall still hung open to July 2021. A coat still rested on the hook near the door. It was like her sister had meant to come home. She checked the kitchen. Nothing unusual. Then the bedroom. Everything was intact, bed made. Books stacked. Makeup tray dusty but untouched. And there, on the nightstand, her sister's old phone. Sierra stared at it. It was the backup device. She recognized the cracked case rose gold with a faded sticker of a sunflower. She picked it up and pressed the power button. To her surprise, it turned on. Most of the content had been wiped. Photos gone, messages empty, call history cleared. The only app that still had data was the Notes app. One note, dated 2 days before Ebony disappeared. It read, Ernanama 1, Pete Homanarma. Don't forget C, shows up at 7. Be ready, smile, no drinks. Lock the back door. Sierra blinked. C. She checked the Wi-Fi connections. The phone had last connected to Thomas' home at 6:41 p.m. That was 7 minutes before Ebony was seen pulling out of the driveway. And the last data usage, 7:12 p.m. Almost 25 minutes after she was supposed to have left. Something didn't fit. Why was the phone wiped? Why was this note left? Who the hell was waiting on the why? The next morning, she returned to the sheriff's department with the phone and the note. She told them about the timeline, about the weird slope of the driveway, about how the car had been in neutral, not drive. The deputy listened, took notes, then shrugged. It could have been an accident, he said. She could have panicked, or maybe she was parked and slipped the gear. It's hard to say. Sierra leaned in. You found her phone wiped, her car locked, her purse untouched, and you still think she accidentally rolled into a pond 10 feet from her own house? The deputy didn't answer. She walked out before she started yelling. That night, the phone rang at 10:03 p.m. Blocked number. Sierra hesitated, then picked up. A voicemail, quiet, nervous. Don't hang up. Who is this? I saw something, the voice said. Back then, when she disappeared. Sierra froze. Who are you? I used to mow lawns in that neighborhood. I was coming back from a job around 8, saw a truck backed up near the pond. No lights on. Thought it was weird. Why didn't you say anything? I was 17. I didn't want to get involved. But when I saw the news this week, the photo of her, I knew it was the same house. Sierra's heart thudded. Do you remember the truck? Urmir Germantinum. Black F-150, no plates. Guy had a beard. That's all I know. You saw him push the car and I didn't stay long, just enough to know he wasn't supposed to be there. There was a pause. Idwana Devernina. Then the line went dead. Sierra stared at the phone. Suddenly, the pieces clicked. Ebony had left the house at 6:48 p.m., but her phone used data until 7:12, meaning she was still nearby. The car was in neutral, meaning it hadn't been driven in. It had been rolled. The phone was wiped, meaning someone else had been inside. The note had mentioned C, someone Ebony was expecting, someone she was preparing for, someone she didn't trust enough to offer a drink, someone she had to remind herself to lock the door for. Sierra sat down at the kitchen table, opened her own laptop, and began searching through old messages, social media, anything that could give her a clue. Then she found it. A comment on one of Ebony's Instagram posts from April 2021. Can't wait to see you soon. Been too long. Sekatay. The username was OrkReedJax87. Carlton Reed, Ebony's ex-boyfriend, the one who'd made threats after they broke up, the one who showed up to her job once, yelling outside, the one the police had talked to but never arrested, and the one who owned a black F-150. Sierra had never liked Carlton Reed. He was the kind of man who smiled too much when things got tense, whose words always sounded like he was selling something, even when it was just an apology. He and Ebony had dated on and off for a little over a year. It started with flowers and long drives and Sunday dinners, then slid quickly into jealousy, controlling texts, fights in parking lots. When Ebony ended things, he didn't take it well. He showed up at her work once, pounding on the glass, sent messages for months, threatened to ruin her if she didn't call him back, but she never pressed charges. Now Sierra was wishing she had. Carlton lived in a mobile home community about 20 minutes west of Jackson, tucked behind an auto parts warehouse and a closed-down bowling alley. Sierra pulled in late morning, parked across the street, and watched. The yard was patchy grass and crushed beer cans. A flagpole leaned to one side. The black F-150 sat in the gravel driveway, dented on one side, a smear of mud on the front fender. She got out of her car, walked up the path, knocked twice. No answer. Then a third knock, louder this time. Footsteps, a creak, and then the door opened. Carlton stood in a faded tank top, bare feet, eyes squinting. He looked at her for a long second, then smirked. Well, damn, if it ain't the pit bull sister. Sierra didn't flinch. You got a minute? For you always. He stepped aside. The inside of the trailer smelled like cigarette smoke and engine oil. A TV was playing low in the background, some crime show. Ironically, Carlton plopped into a recliner and gestured to the couch. Sierra stayed standing. I want to ask you about Ebony. He leaned back, arms folded. Already told the cops everything I know. That was 2 years ago. And it hasn't changed. Sierra stared at him. You saw her the night she disappeared. Carlton's smile faded slightly. No, I didn't. She wrote your initial in a note 2 days before, said you were coming over. People say a lot of things. She said she had to lock the door behind you, that she wasn't drinking, that she needed to smile. Carlton shrugged. Maybe we were talking again. Doesn't mean I saw her. Sierra stepped closer. Someone saw a truck like yours by the pond the night she went missing? He laughed, dry and sharp. Lady, every third guy in this state drives a black F-150. You gonna arrest all of us? No, she said. Just the one who lies. Carlton stood then, all charm gone from his face. You're digging where there's nothing, he said. That girl probably had too much to drink, parked too close to the water, and rolled in. Said, yeah, but not my fault. She didn't drink, Sierra said flatly. Everyone drinks. She left everything in the car, wallet, phone, purse, locked in neutral. Sounds like a screw-up. Sierra stared at him for a long time, then said, You're not as clever as you think, and left. She drove straight to the house next door to Ebony's old place. It was owned by an older couple, the Braxtons, who had always liked Ebony, often sharing leftover cornbread or watering her garden when she traveled. Sierra hadn't spoken to them in over a year. Now, she knocked on their door with a tight throat and a folder under her arm. Mrs. Braxton answered. Oh, honey, she said, pulling her into a hug. We prayed and prayed. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Sierra whispered. I'm just trying to piece things together. Inside, they sat at the kitchen table with glasses of sweet tea and an old photo album Sierra brought for comfort. Then Sierra got to the point. Do you still have your security cameras? Mr. Braxton nodded. One out front, one by the garage. Any chance you still have the recordings from June 24th, 2021? He scratched his chin. Would have been erased unless I pulled the file. Did you ever pull it? Key to Suriname. Mrs. Braxton stood, walked to a drawer, pulled out a thumb drive. Didn't want to watch it, she said, but something felt off. Sierra's hand trembled as she took it. Back at home, she plugged the drive into her laptop and opened the folder. There were several video files. She scanned the timestamps, found the one marked 7:58 p.m. That was roughly an hour after Ebony was last seen. The camera was pointed toward the street between the two properties. At first, nothing, then headlights, a truck pulling slowly into the grass beside the pond. No sound, just grainy footage. A figure stepped out, tall, male, bearded. He walked around to the back of the truck, opened the tailgate, then something large and covered slid backward toward the water. Moments later, the truck pulled away. Sierra paused the footage, zoomed in. There, for just a second, the man turned. It wasn't perfect resolution, but the jawline, the build. And on his right bicep, partially visible beneath the sleeve, a snake tattoo. Carlton had that tattoo. The next morning, Sierra walked into the Rankin County Sheriff's Office with the thumb drive in her hand and fire in her chest. She waited 15 minutes before someone finally came to the front. A detective named Robbie Kincaid, late 30s, shirt half untucked. Tired eyes met her at the intake desk. You again, he said, not rude, but not warm either. I have something, she said. He raised an eyebrow. Like what? Video footage from a neighbor. It shows a black F-150 backing up to the pond the night Ebony went missing. A man unloading something, covered. Kincaid's posture straightened a little. That's a bold claim. Sierra handed him the drive. Just watch. She sat in the hallway while he reviewed it. 30 minutes passed. She counted the ceiling tiles, watched the second hand on the wall clock, tried not to think about how long her sister had sat underwater before someone finally looked. When Kincaid returned, his face had changed. Still skeptical, but something had cracked. You said the guy in the video has a snake tattoo on his right arm. Yes. Who do you think it is? Carlton Reed, her ex. He has that tattoo. He lied about not seeing her that day. She left a note saying he was coming over. Kincaid nodded slowly. You've got a timeline. You've got motive, and now you might have placement. So, I'll open a formal file, he said. But don't expect miracles. Sierra's jaw tightened. Don't give me excuses. Give me results. Kincaid didn't smile, but he didn't walk away either. That night, she drove home under a blood-orange sky, the kind Mississippi summers like to paint just before a storm. Her phone buzzed as she pulled into the driveway. Unknown number. She answered. You think you're smart, a voice growled. Her stomach dropped. Carlton. You think you can dig up old shit and it'll stick? I don't need to think, she said. I have proof. You don't have anything. That video's garbage. No one can see anything. Funny. You sound worried. You better be careful what pond you end up in. She sat in the car a long time after that, fists tight around the steering wheel. She wasn't scared. She was furious. If Carlton thought intimidation would work, he hadn't been paying attention. She was the sister of a girl who sat dead in her own front yard for 2 years while everyone shrugged. And now they were listening, even if just barely. She texted Kincaid. Carlton just called me, threatened me, blocked number, log it. He replied 5 minutes later. Got it, logged, noted, be smart, don't engage. She stared at the message. then opened Facebook. By midnight, her post had been shared 400 times. My name is Sierra Thomas. 2 years ago, my sister, Ebony, disappeared. They said she ran off. They said there was no foul play. Yesterday, we found video footage showing her ex-boyfriend backing a truck up to the pond the night she went missing. That pond is where her body was found. For 2 years, she was 15 feet away from help, and still, no one looked. She attached the frame from the video, the blurry shape of Carlton's truck, headlights off, tail lights glowing, and added one more line. If the police won't shout this from the rooftops, I will. The post exploded. Within 12 hours, it was on Reddit's front page. Within 24, a reporter from the Clarion Ledger called. Within 48, Carlton's name was trending on Twitter. He posted once, I had nothing to do with what happened to Ebony. These lies are dangerous. Then deleted his account. On day 3, Detective Kincaid called. We've got enough for a warrant. Sierra felt her knees weaken. Search or arrest. Search first, but if what we find lines up with your timeline, we move forward. She didn't cry, but she gripped the phone like a lifeline. Thank you, she whispered. We're not done, he replied, but we're finally moving. That evening, she stood by the pond again. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows across the water. The air smelled like summer and justice and something sharp beneath it. She stared at the driveway, tracing the curve with her eyes. A woman had disappeared here, quietly, cleanly, and for 2 years, the world let it happen. But no more. The warrant came through at 7:42 a.m. on a Thursday morning. Detective Robbie Kincaid stood on the front porch of Carlton Reed's trailer with 2 deputies flanking him and a clipboard in his hand. Carlton answered the door in a t-shirt that looked slept in, holding a can of beer even though the sun hadn't fully risen. You got a warrant? He asked, voice rough. Kincaid held it up. Signed by Judge Lawson 30 minutes ago. Step aside. Carlton smirked. Y'all really think I'm dumb enough to keep anything here? We'll find out. The trailer was dim, cluttered, reeking of sweat and stale food. A broken ceiling fan turned slowly above the living room, doing nothing to cool the air. On the coffee table, beer cans, a half-smoked blunt, and a stack of unopened mail. Kincaid split the team. One officer searched the back bedroom. Another checked the garage behind the property. Kincaid focused on the living room. He opened drawers, lifted cushions, took photographs. He moved to the kitchen, pulled open cabinets, checked inside cereal boxes. Then he noticed something odd. A section of the linoleum flooring near the back door had a different sheen, slightly raised, edges curling like they'd been pulled and re-glued. He crouched, knocked lightly. Hollow. Bring me a pry bar, he called. 10 minutes later, the square was up. Beneath it, a shallow storage space dug into the subfloor. Inside, a duffel bag. Kincaid unzipped it. Out came a woman's wallet, tan leather, gold zipper, a phone cracked, dead, a bracelet, silver chain with a sunflower charm. He recognized it from the photo Sierra had shown him, the one she said Ebony wore every day. Kincaid stared at the bag for a long moment, then called it in. Outside, Carlton leaned against his truck, arms folded. When Kincaid stepped out with the duffel in his hands, Carlton didn't say anything, but his jaw clenched. You lied, Kincaid said. I didn't kill her. You said you hadn't seen her in months. I hadn't. She had a note with your initial. A neighbor saw your truck. Now we find her stuff under your floor. Carlton looked at the bag, then back at Kincaid. That doesn't mean I killed her. Kincaid didn't reply. He pulled out his phone and snapped a photo of the bag, then of Carlton. Then turned to his deputy. Cuff him. Carlton was booked on obstruction and evidence tampering while they processed the scene. Back at the station, Kincaid laid everything out on the table in interview room 3. The wallet, the phone, the bracelet. Carlton stared at them like they were ghosts. Why hide her stuff? Kincaid asked. Carlton leaned back. I didn't. She left it. I panicked. Panicked, wanted to. She came over that night. We talked. She got upset, left in a rush. I didn't know where she went. I just found the bag later. So you thought hiding it under your floor was the logical move. Carlton didn't answer. While the interrogation stalled, Sierra sat in her car outside the sheriff's office, fingers tapping the steering wheel. She wasn't allowed inside during questioning, but she didn't need to hear the words. She needed one thing: closure. At 4:12 p.m., her phone buzzed. It was Kincaid. We got him on evidence tampering. That's enough to hold him. But if we want murder or manslaughter, we need the autopsy to confirm foul play. Sierra exhaled. And if it doesn't, then he walks. Eventually. There was a silence. Then Sierra said, I'm not done. Meanwhile, Kincaid returned to the trailer that evening to supervise the removal of electronics: Carlton's laptop, 2 old phones, and a dash cam from the black F-150. The dash cam had no memory card, but the laptop, still active, poorly protected. And when they opened a folder labeled Old Stuff, they found a series of photos. One, in particular, made Kincaid sit down. Ebony, standing in Carlton's garage, wearing the same hoodie from the night she disappeared. The timestamp, June 24th, 2021, 7:33 p.m. Half an hour after she was seen pulling out of her driveway. She hadn't been going somewhere. She'd been going to him. The interview room was small, square, and quiet enough to hear the ticking of the wall clock. Carlton Reed sat across the table from Detective Kincaid, hands cuffed in front of him, a faint bruise on his right knuckle, left eye twitching every few seconds. On the table in front of him lay 3 items: Ebony's cracked phone, her silver sunflower bracelet, and the screenshot of the surveillance footage from the Braxton's house. Kincaid leaned back, arms folded. Let's try this again. Carlton stared at the items like they were trash. I didn't kill her, he muttered. You said you didn't see her that night. I didn't. You said that before we found the video of your truck at the pond. Coincidence. And the photo on your laptop, she came by. That's it. She came by, Kincaid echoed. And then what left her things in your house drove into a pond 2 hours later? Carlton didn't answer. Kincaid leaned forward. She was unconscious. Carlton? That got his attention. What Manton? The autopsy came back. No water in her lungs, no bruising from the seatbelt, no struggle. Carlton blinked. She was dead before the car hit the water, Kincaid said. For a moment, the room was still. Then Carlton said, maybe she overdosed. I didn't give her anything. Kincaid nodded slowly. Funny, toxicology says otherwise. He pulled out a paper and laid it on the table. High levels of alprazolam in her system, that's Xanax. Prescription, but not hers. Carlton's jaw flexed. You gave her something to calm her down, Kincaid asked, or maybe to shut her up. I didn't, Carlton started. Then she just happened to take your pills and die in your house. Silence. Then what? Kincaid continued. You panicked, didn't call 911. You cleaned up, hid her stuff, rolled her car into the pond and walked away. Still no answer. Kincaid stood. See? We're past the point of stories now. You're not fighting to prove your innocence. You're fighting for how long you go away. Carlton said nothing. So Kincaid left the room. Meanwhile, in the adjacent viewing room, Sierra watched the footage through a one-way mirror, arms folded so tightly her nails dug into her forearms. Every word felt like a knife. Every silence felt like a scream. Her sister had sat dead in a car, underwater, 30 feet from her own home, while the man who put her there went to work, went drinking, posted memes. She turned to Kincaid as he walked in. You think he'll confess, Darrow on? Not likely, but it doesn't matter now. You've got enough, sunshine. That's a plenty. Kincaid tapped the folder in his hand. The blood from the front seat matches Ebony's DNA. The pill residue matches what we found in her system. The tire treads match the track marks from the pond's edge. And the Braxton's video places him at the scene. And the laptop, Dusher, time-stamped, GPS matched, enough for obstruction, tampering, and manslaughter, possibly second-degree murder if the DA pushes. Sierra exhaled. It wasn't enough, but it would do. That evening, news broke. Carlton Reed charged in connection with the death of Ebony Thomas. Authorities confirm new forensic evidence contradicts original theory of accident. Sierra's phone exploded. Messages poured in from reporters, strangers, old classmates, her pastor, Ebony's former co-workers. Most offered support. A few didn't. One message simply read, "That girl was always unstable. Maybe he was just covering up a mistake." Another, West Suriname. "Funny how the sister gets famous now." Sierra didn't reply. She turned off her phone and walked outside. The pond was still. Police tape fluttered on one end. A fresh patch of churned mud marked where the car had been pulled up. The air was still heavy with algae, decay, and memory. Sierra crouched by the edge and ran her fingers through the water. A figure approached behind her, quiet but steady. "Kincaid." "You did it," he said softly. "No," she replied. "She did. She left clues. I just followed them." He nodded. "I run to my... There's one more thing." Sierra turned. Kincaid handed her a paper one. It's a copy of the original statement Carlton gave 2 years ago. She read it, then frowned. "Mike, what's wrong with it? Look at the timestamp." The statement was taken at 9:05 p.m., June 24, 2021. But Ebony's car wasn't reported missing until 11:17, she said. Kincaid nodded, meaning Carlton came to the station hours before anyone even filed a report. Sierra's blood turned cold. He was establishing alibi. Kincaid looked toward the pond. He knew before anyone else did. That night, Sierra sat in her sister's old bedroom for the first time since she'd died. The bed was still made. The shelves still held the same books. A dried bouquet sat in a vase, long since faded. She curled up in the corner with a blanket and wept, not loud, not broken, but steady, controlled, the way people cry when the world has already stolen their loudest grief. Tomorrow would be court, next week would be headlines, months from now would be trial. But tonight, she let herself fall into the memory of a girl who liked sunflower charms and too much sugar in her tea. 3 days after Carlton Reed was officially charged, the town turned upside down. It started online. A local Facebook group called Rankin County Strong posted a link to the news article with a caption that read, "Just because they say it, don't make it true, innocent until proven guilty." The comments poured in, hundreds within hours. "I've known Carlton since high school. He wouldn't hurt a fly. This is just cancel culture wrapped in crime. That sister always seemed like she wanted attention. This is what happens when the media runs a trial before the court does." Sierra saw the post around midnight. She didn't comment, didn't argue. But her hands shook the whole time. By the end of the week, news vans lined the road near the old Thomas house. Grace Froman, a local reporter for Channel 3, showed up with a cameraman and knocked on Sierra's door. She wore a soft smile and carried a clipboard full of questions. "I just want to give you a voice," she said, "a chance to respond." Sierra hesitated, then nodded. They filmed on the front porch, simple, no dramatics. Grace asked her about Ebony, about the case, about the video footage and the bag found in Carlton's floorboards. Sierra answered plainly, "My sister was silenced once. I'm not letting it happen again." The segment aired that night at 6:00 p.m. But the next day, someone spray-painted the word liar on her mailbox. She filed a police report. Kincaid called her that evening. "People are rattled," he said, "but it'll pass." "Will it?" she asked. "Or will they keep pretending he's the victim?" Kincaid paused. "Truth doesn't need everyone to believe it, just 12 jurors. Sierra wasn't so sure. 2 days later, Carlton's attorney, an out-of-town man in a navy suit and slick hair, held a press conference in front of the county courthouse. He claimed the charges were based on emotion, not evidence, that Sierra had manipulated public opinion, and that Ebony's death was still under review, with no definitive cause. Then he handed reporters a USB drive. Inside, he said, you'll find a voice recording. It's a conversation between my client and Ms. Thomas taken in early 2021, in which she clearly admits to threatening to expose Ebony's mental health struggles. The internet took it and ran. Within hours, clips circulated. A woman's voice muffled, angry, saying, maybe if she breaks down again, people will finally believe me. The implication was clear. Sierra was being painted as the unstable sister, the one who wanted a tragedy, the one who orchestrated the spotlight. But she knew that voice wasn't hers, and she knew it hadn't been recorded in 2021. Because in January 2021, Sierra had been in New Orleans for work and she had hotel receipts to prove it. But it didn't matter. To the people who already believed Carlton was innocent, this wasn't about facts. It was about choosing a side. She received her first death threat 2 days later. The email was simple. Drop the charges or you'll join your sister in the pond. She forwarded it to Kincaid. He tracked the IP to a burner account. Nothing to act on. That night, Sierra couldn't sleep. Not because she was afraid, but because she was exhausted. Fighting grief was one thing. Fighting a town that refused to grieve was another. But not everyone turned away. A podcast producer named Elise Tran reached out. Her true crime series, The Hollow Files, had over 2 million listeners. She offered to do a 3-part deep dive into Ebony's case with Sierra's blessing. Sierra hesitated, then agreed. Tell it right, she said. Don't make her a headline. We won't, Elise promised. They recorded the first interview in Sierra's living room. Beneath a framed photo of Ebony at age 12, half smiling, eyes full of something that now looked like warning. In that interview, Sierra said one thing that would go viral a week later. People like Carlton don't hide in shadows. They hide in plain sight, behind football games and cookouts and quiet churches. And when someone points at the mask, people don't want to see the face underneath. It was shared over 30 times. Even the Washington Post reached out for comment. Suddenly, the tide began to turn. But Sierra didn't care about trending. She cared about one thing, justice. And she wasn't done. Because she knew there was more. Something still missing. Something Ebony had tried to leave behind. A final clue, and she was about to find it. It started with a 2-factor verification code. Sierra had nearly forgotten about the old email address, Ebony's college account, one she hadn't used in years. But while digging through bank statements, Sierra stumbled on a cloud storage receipt tied to it. She followed the breadcrumb. A reset email, a copy of Ebony's last driver's license photo for ID confirmation, a support chat with a cloud rep named Derek, who finally, after 3 rounds of security questions, granted her access. The account was mostly empty. But one folder sat alone, untitled, dated June 23, 2021, the day before Ebony disappeared. Sierra's pulse picked up. She clicked. Inside a single audio file, she paused. She stared at the file name, just in case. Her fingers hovered over the play button for a full minute before she pressed it. Ebony's voice crackled through the speakers, clear, steady, but low as if she were whispering into the phone in a bathroom or parked car. Okay, so if you're hearing this, it's because I didn't chicken out, or maybe I did. Maybe something happened. I don't know. Either way, I want this out there. It paused, breathing. I'm supposed to see Carlton tomorrow. I know it's a bad idea, but he says he just wants to talk. One last time. Longer pause. I told Sierra I was fine. I lied. He's been texting again. Showed up near my work. I didn't tell anyone because it always looks like I overreact, like I'm being dramatic. Another breath, slightly unsteady. But I know Carlton. I know what he does when he feels like someone's leaving. He says he forgave me, but that look in his eyes, it's the same one from the last time he pushed me. Sierra's nails dug into her thigh. Then came the words that chilled her. And it's not just him. Someone else knew I was going. Someone helped set it up. Sierra's heart stopped. I don't know how deep it goes, but if something happens, start with Carlton, then ask about Daryl. He's not who he pretends to be. Click, Severitik. Silence. End of file. 101. Sierra sat frozen. Then she replayed it. Twice. Each time, her skin crawled. Not just from what Ebony said, but from how she said it. Quiet, resigned, like someone who knew she was walking into something final. And that last name, Daryl, there was only one Daryl Sierra knew connected to Ebony. Daryl Langston, Terenomam, Yarnmayum. Ebony and Sierra's mother's boyfriend. A man who had always hovered at the edges of family functions, too friendly, too quiet, too involved. He had comforted their mother when Ebony disappeared, helped organize search parties, brought food, prayed loudly in church. And now, suddenly, he had a name in a file titled, Just in Case. Sierra played the message for Kincaid that night. His face went still. That's enough for a subpoena, he said. Possibly more. You believe her? Sierra asked. I believed her the first time, he replied. This just connects another dot. Do we go public? Kincaid shook his head. Not yet. If Daryl knows we're on to him, he'll vanish. Let me run it through the DA first. Quietly. Sierra nodded, but her blood was already burning. She drove home that night in a fog. The town was quiet, too quiet, the air thick with summer heat and something else tension. She saw the same porch lights, the same flags, the same front yards with faith and family signs. And she wondered, how many people in this town had told Ebony to give Carlton one more chance? How many had smiled at Daryl without seeing what lived behind the grin? She pulled into her driveway and sat in the car for a long time. Then, finally, she whispered, I'm sorry. To Ebony, to herself, to the silence she had once mistaken for safety. The next morning, she visited her mother. They sat at the kitchen table with mismatched mugs of coffee. Her mother had aged 5 years and 2, her hair thinner, her fingers slower, her voice quiet. Sierra waited until they'd finished the first cup before speaking. Do you trust Daryl? Her mother looked up, startled. What kind of question is that? Just answer. Her mother blinked. He's been nothing but supportive, kind. Why? Ebony didn't trust him. Silence. Ebony left a voice message. Sierra said. Before she disappeared, she said if something happened, we should ask about Daryl. Her mother's face went pale. She said that she did. The cup trembled slightly in her mother's hand. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Sierra said. Just think about everything that didn't feel right, every time you thought you were overreacting. Her mother didn't respond, but she didn't deny it either. That afternoon, Kincaid called. We checked Daryl's financials. 3 cash withdrawals the week Ebony went missing, one of them the morning after. Same ATM as Carlton. Within 5 minutes, Sierra's heart pounded. He's involved. Looks that way. What's next? We sit, we watch, and when the time's right, we hit hard. Kincaid's voice was calm. Yes. It was only a matter of time before Daryl Langston found out. Sierra wasn't sure who told him. Someone in the sheriff's office. A whisper from a mutual friend. Maybe even her own mother, but the news didn't stay quiet long. He showed up at her house 3 days after Kincaid confirmed the ATM footage. He didn't knock. He didn't text. He was simply there when she opened the door to check the mail, standing on her porch. Arms crossed. Expression caught somewhere between fury and wounded pride. You really think I had something to do with this? He asked. Sierra stared at him. Ebony did. His mouth twitched. I was good to her, to your mother, to this family. You were close enough to know when she'd be alone. I helped lead her search. His voice rose. I was the one who called the news stations, the volunteers. I cried at her funeral. You cried well, Sierra said. I'll give you that. He left in silence. But the next morning, the church bulletin board bore a new flyer. Pray for truth, don't let lies destroy good men. Beside it was a photo of Daryl, smiling beside Sierra's mother at a community bake sale. The implication was clear, and the town heard it. By Sunday, Sierra couldn't walk into the grocery store without people pausing in the aisles. Some offered quiet nods. Others turned away. She overheard one woman whisper, "Poor Miss Langston. That girl's tearing her apart." "She always was dramatic," someone replied. That night, Sierra's mother called. Daryl came by. Sierra said nothing. "He's hurting." So was Ebony. "I don't believe he did anything." He took cash from the same ATM as Carlton the morning after she disappeared. "That doesn't mean Wenemy." "She named him Mom," Sierra snapped. "She said if anything happened, to look at him." Her mother went quiet. "Then sometimes, grief makes us see monsters where there are shadows." Sierra hung up without saying goodbye. The next day, Kincaid confirmed what she feared. "The DA is stalling." Sierra blinked. "Why?" "Too much noise. Daryl's respected. He's on 2 charity boards, used to teach Sunday school. And if we charge him without something airtight, the blowback will kill the entire case." "So what do we do?" Kincaid hesitated. "You said Ebony left a voice recording." Sierra nodded. "Is it admissible?" "No, not without chain of custody, but it's powerful." Kincaid leaned forward. "Wow, what if you released it publicly?" Sierra stared at him. "That's your plan. It's not official, but it puts pressure where we need it. And if it makes me look worse..." He didn't answer. That night, Sierra sat on the edge of her bed with her laptop open and her phone recording. She stared into the camera for a long moment before speaking. Then, with a steady breath, she hit record. "My name is Sierra Thomas. 2 years ago, my sister Ebony disappeared. 3 months ago, we found her body in a pond behind her own house. 2 weeks ago, we found proof she didn't drive there herself. And 3 days ago, I learned something that made me sick." She explained Daryl, the ATM footage, the inconsistencies, the voice memo. Then, she played it unedited. Ebony's voice, crackling, brave, afraid. And then Sierra looked back at the camera. "If you still believe in Daryl after this, ask yourself why. Ask what it means when a man has to be protected because he's nice to you, but someone else says he wasn't. My sister died because no one wanted to listen while she was still breathing. So I'm asking now, are you listening yet?" She uploaded it at midnight. By dawn, it had over 100,000 views. By noon, the video had passed 300,000 views. By 5 p.m., it was the top post on Reddit's r/True Crime, with thousands of comments, some shocked, some skeptical, some vicious. Why would she wait 2 years to say this? That voice recording gave me chills. Daryl sounds like every smiling predator I've ever met. Local talk radio picked it up. Channel 7 ran a segment. Podcasts, YouTubers, TikTokers all jumped in. In just 12 hours, Daryl Langston, the man who had spent 2 years posing as a grieving family friend, became something else entirely. A suspect. Sierra stayed offline most of the day. She'd already said what she needed to say. She took a long walk that evening, passing by familiar streets that now felt like enemy territory, lawns with "We Believe in Daryl" signs, a mural someone had painted of Ebony's face now defaced with a spray painted over the eyes. She didn't cry. She was past crying. But she did flinch when a car slowed beside her and a man shouted, "Liar!" before speeding off. That night, her phone rang. A number she didn't recognize. She answered anyway. "Miss Thomas," a male voice said. "Yes. My name's Jesse. I used to work odd jobs for Mr. Langston, lawn care, trash runs, sometimes errands." Sierra's heart jumped. "Go on." "I saw your video. I wasn't going to say anything, but I can't stop thinking about that night." "What night?" "The night your sister disappeared." Silence. Demanon seconds. Sierra whispered, "What did you see?" Jesse said he was helping Daryl clear out his shed behind the church around 9 p.m. on June 24th, 2021. Said Daryl told him not to go around back. Just stay near the gate. But Jesse had gone to the back anyway, looking for a missing box of tools, and he saw it. Carlton's truck, Daryl talking to him, something heavy in the bed, tarps, a bag, voices raised, then dropped, then silence. He didn't stay long. He left before they saw him. But he never forgot. Sierra asked why he hadn't come forward. I was 17, no record, no money, just scared. And now I see what he did to you, to your sister. I want to do what's right. She hung up, called Kincaid. He listened, took notes, cross-checked Jesse's old employment log, then made another call. By morning, Jesse had given a sworn statement. The DA couldn't ignore it anymore. At 9:04 a.m., an arrest warrant was issued for Daryl Langston on charges of accessory to manslaughter, evidence tampering, and obstruction of justice. Kincaid led the team. 4 cars, quiet approach, no lights. But when they knocked, there was no answer. The door was locked, curtains drawn, trash taken out, nothing disturbed. Except Daryl was gone. Inside, the house was oddly clean. Too clean. Fridge emptied, mail stacked, phone left charging on the counter. His wallet was still there, his keys, his watch. But not him. They searched every room, every closet, the crawl space, the garage. The neighbor said she saw him 2 nights ago, taking out trash and slippers. Another said he was at the grocery store yesterday, buying almond milk and batteries. But this morning, gone. Vanished. Like Ebony had once vanished, only now, the masks were off. By evening, Daryl's face was on every screen in Mississippi. Wanted Daryl Isaac Langston, 52, considered at risk of flight. Call authorities with information. The calls poured in. Most were useless. A man in Georgia who looked like Daryl turned out to be a retired librarian. A sighting in Alabama was just a guy wearing similar glasses. Sierra watched it all unfold from her couch, hands shaking. He's gone, she told Kincaid over the phone. Not far, he replied. People like him don't run without a plan, and plans leave trails. At 11:23 p.m., her mother showed up at the door. She looked smaller than Sierra remembered, her shoulders curled inward, her eyes rimmed red. She didn't ask to come in, just stood on the porch and said, "You were right." Sierra didn't say anything. I didn't want to believe it. I still don't. But the things people are saying, I think he lied to me. He lied to all of us, Sierra said. Her mother nodded. I'm sorry. Sierra nodded too, then stepped aside and let her in. Somewhere out there, Daryl was hiding. But Sierra knew something now. The truth didn't need a face to stand. It just needed time. And she had waited before. She could wait again. He Courthouse was old enough to remember a time before digital clocks. Everything about it felt heavy wood-paneled walls, thick carpet. The weight of too many lives passed through its doors. Sierra had never liked courtrooms. They smelled like dust and silence and regret. She sat on a hard bench outside courtroom 2B, her hands clasped in her lap, her spine stiff with something that wasn't quite fear and wasn't quite anger. Carlton Reed was finally going to trial, and she was the star witness. The case had taken almost a year to prepare, a year of subpoenas and statements, of Carlton's defense team filing motions to suppress the audio recording, to dismiss Jesse's testimony, to cast doubt on the GPS logs in the duffel bag, and even the scar pattern on the interior door handle of Ebony's car. But none of it stuck. The judge ruled the trial would proceed. The charge second-degree murder. The maximum sentence life. Carlton was already seated at the defense table when Sierra entered the courtroom. He wore a gray suit that didn't quite fit and a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. His hair was shorter than she remembered, but the jaw was the same tight, like he was grinding his teeth even when he didn't speak. Sierra didn't look away. Neither did he. It was the first time they'd shared a room in over a year. The bailiff called the court to order. The jury filed in, 12 strangers with blank expressions and fidgeting hands. The prosecutor, Ada Marvin Llewellyn, stood. He was a tall, lean man in his 50s with a measured voice and a gift for letting silence speak. He gave his opening statement calmly, without dramatics. This case is about a young woman who trusted the wrong man, a woman who told friends and family that she was afraid, a woman who died not because she made a mistake, but because someone made a decision. Then he turned, nodded to Sierra. You'll hear from her sister. You'll hear the victim's own words. And when this trial ends, you'll know the truth that she didn't get to survive long enough to say in person. The defense attorney, Paul Baird, was slicker. All charm and shrugs and phrases like emotional tragedy, unreliable narration, and we just don't know what happened that night. Sierra wrote a single sentence on her notepad as he spoke. You knew exactly what you were doing. She was called to the stand on the third day. By then, the gallery was full press. Supporters, spectators, some she knew, many she didn't. Her mother sat in the second row, dressed in dark green, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Daryl was still missing, but his presence lingered like smoke. Sierra took the oath, sat down, and breathed once deep and steady. She wasn't nervous. She was ready. The prosecutor guided her through the events. The day Ebony vanished. The failed police search. The discovery of the car. The duffel bag. The thumb drive. The voice message. The ATM logs. Jesse's testimony. With each question, Sierra's voice grew stronger, clearer. Her eyes never left the jury. They needed to hear it not as a story, but as truth. Not entertainment. Evidence. When they played Ebony's voice in the courtroom, something shifted. The audio crackled slightly over the speakers. Her words filled the silence with the kind of fear that lingers in wallpaper. If you're hearing this, something went wrong. Some jurors glanced away. Others stared down. A few closed their eyes. When it ended, the room was still. Carlton didn't move, didn't blink, didn't show a single flicker of recognition. Sierra wanted to scream. Instead, she folded her hands and waited for the next question. The defense cross-examination was sharper. They tried to frame her as emotional, suggested she had projected blame out of grief, that her memories were colored by trauma, that her online video had tainted the jury pool. But Sierra never flinched. She answered every question, corrected every mischaracterization, clarified every half-truth. By the end, even Baird looked less sure of himself. During the recess, Sierra stepped into the hallway and exhaled like she hadn't in days. Her mother approached slowly. For a moment, neither spoke. Then her mother said, "You were brave in there." Sierra nodded. Then, softly, "Do you believe me now?" Her mother looked away. "I believe in her," she said. "I should have sooner." It wasn't an apology, but it was something, and Sierra took it. Outside, the courthouse lawn was dotted with people. Some held signs, most just watched. One young woman approached Sierra as she walked to her car. She looked no older than 20. She hesitated, then said, "I knew Carlton. I dated him, briefly. He always had this way of making you feel small without yelling." Sierra nodded. "That sounds about right." The girl offered a tight smile. "Thank you for not staying quiet." Sierra watched her walk away. And for the first time since this began, she didn't feel alone. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed with the windows open, listening to the summer air press against the screens. She thought of Ebony not as she had been in the trial, but as she truly was. Laughing on the back porch, baking cornbread that always came out too dry, humming to herself when nervous, wearing that sunflower bracelet and calling it her armor. She thought about how many girls wore that same kind of armor, and how many never got to take it off. The next morning, Sierra met with Kincaid. They sat in the sheriff's conference room, files spread across the table. He tapped a report. Carlton's phone pinged near Daryl's place 20 minutes before Ebony's phone went dark. Sierra raised an eyebrow. "So he didn't just panic after—" "No," Kincaid said. "He brought her to him." The puzzle was nearly complete. All that remained was the missing piece. Daryl Yinemanua. Daryl Langston was arrested at 6:34 a.m. on a quiet Tuesday morning, 11 months after the warrant for his capture had been issued. He didn't resist. He didn't speak. He was found 2 towns over, living in a rented trailer under a different name, working at a landscaping supply warehouse. He wore glasses now, dyed his hair, had shaved the goatee. But the face was the same, and so were the eyes. Sierra didn't hear about it through the news. She heard about it from her mother. She called around 7. They found him, her voice cracking on the last word. Sierra sat down slowly at the kitchen table. Where were you? We were in Mashu, Pike County. He was living as Dean Lewis, had an ID and everything. Her mother took a breath. He called me 2 weeks ago, a block number. I didn't know it was him until the end. He said he missed Sunday dinners. Sierra said nothing. I didn't tell the police right away. Her mother continued. I didn't know what to do. I needed to hear his voice once. You didn't owe him anything, Sierra said. Her mother sighed. I know, I just didn't want to be wrong again. When Sierra saw Daryl in person again, it was behind glass. He looked smaller, deflated, as if hiding had sucked all the air out of him. His hands were pale, fingernails bitten down to the quick. His voice when it came was lower than she remembered. I thought I'd be gone longer, he said. Guess I got tired. Sierra said nothing. I didn't kill her, he added. You helped. She was going to tell people. She was going to ruin Carlton. He panicked. And you, Daryl looked down. She trusted me. That's what made it worse. A long pause. She said your house never felt safe. Daryl blinked. I used to think I was a good man, he said. You used to hide well. Carlton's sentencing came 2 weeks later. The courtroom was packed. The judge, firm and unsentimental, reviewed the charges, read the statements, listened to the final appeals, then delivered the sentence. 37 years, no parole. Carlton didn't flinch. He stood, accepted the decision, and walked out in cuffs without looking back once. But as he passed Sierra's bench, she stood. Not to gloat, not to watch him fall, just to remind him, you didn't win. In the months that followed, Sierra didn't rest. She worked with a nonprofit to launch a scholarship in Ebony's name, focused on women escaping toxic relationships. She spoke at schools, hosted local panels, agreed to one final podcast episode with Elise Tran. In it, she said, if we only tell stories after someone dies, we're missing the point. The real power is helping someone while they're still alive. Her relationship with her mother mended slowly, not all at once, not in one tearful hug or apology, but in small moments. Tea left on the porch, a shared laugh over an old photo, attending therapy together, even when it felt like walking on gravel. Some fractures never vanish, but they stop hurting when you stop pretending they weren't there. One Sunday afternoon, Sierra visited the pond. There was no police tape now. The mud had settled. Grass had begun to regrow where the tow truck had left its scars. She brought no flowers, just a notebook. She sat on the bank and wrote, you weren't invisible. You weren't silent. I just didn't hear you in time, but I hear you now. As she left, her phone buzzed, a number she didn't recognize. She answered anyway. Miss Thomas, Anna, yes. My niece went missing last week in Biloxi. They're saying it was probably just a runaway, but it doesn't feel right. Sierra closed her eyes, took a breath, and said, I'm listening.